Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den. I don't know why I'm wearing my earplugs still because I don't use them for the show. Welcome to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. Mark Moyer doing some great things with his networking and informational events. Check out winagainacademy.com. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Don Orris as our guest. Don, welcome to the Wolff Den.
Thank you very much, Matt. As always, a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, great to have you here. I always like everyone to introduce themselves, so give us a quick overview for those who don't know who you are and what you do.
Oh boy, so yeah, Don Orris. I'm live here in Los Angeles. Been in this business a very long time. The bulk of that, 22 years of it with Ticketmaster. The last gig I had there was the regional vice president for the Western region, what brought me to LA. Subsequent to leaving Ticketmaster, I spent some time at what is now Access Ticketing, helped get that up and running, eTix, and currently at Saffire Tix, just cornering the fair and festival space. Also have a company called Don Orris Consulting Group, doing a lot of work over the past several years with entities like Ticket IQ, Cirque du Soleil, a few other operations from London to Montreal to New York to LA. So staying busy.
Yeah, and today we're going to talk about all of that, but also we're going to talk about Less, which is a new venture with you and Jason Varnish, live entertainment staffing services. So let's start there. Tell everybody a little bit about what that is. I mean, you were nice enough to be on our panel on one of our Open to Work events, which fits very nicely into what you're doing, but give us a little bit more information about Less.
Absolutely. So Less was kind of the brainchild of Jason and I getting together. And those of you who don't know, Jason Varnish runs a company called Bomb Advisors. He's done box office management work and staffing for, I think, 8 years now. Had great reputation in the business, just does wonderful work, hardworking, good guy. Based out of Pittsburgh. It was just Matt and I were talking prior to the opening. He's coming off back-to-back U.S. Open events for the PGA, the women's and then the men's at Torrey Pines. So a very busy young man. I kind of had an idea as the pandemic was unfolding and we were seeing the furloughs that eventually became layoffs. I had a ton of peers, a ton of friends, all kind of people at every level of the industry losing their jobs as the pandemic got worse and worse and this thing stretched out longer and longer. People would reach out to me on a pretty regular basis. And frankly, I was kind of overwhelmed by the numbers of just reaching out and saying, hey, if you hear of something, let me know. Hey, do you know this person there? Hey, if you hear about a job at this place, can you make an intro for me? And the more I heard from all these folks, I got the idea of somehow using that database, using those relationships, and somehow finding opportunities for these folks. Now, the flip side of that coin is while everybody's looking for a job, as the industry begins to open up, we're seeing on the client side a need for talent, but they've also been without revenue for 12, 14, 15 months. So they don't necessarily have the budgets that they had pre-pandemic to start bringing back full-time staffers. So the light bulb went off and Jason and I talked about it. And we're trying to find a way to match that tremendous skill set, that tremendous database of experienced veteran live event folks who just are looking for a paycheck and somehow getting back into the business. Can we somehow align with them with these people looking for people, but maybe not able to bring back full-timers? So if we can match up skill with need on maybe a part-time, a contract, short-term contract type basis, everybody's going to win in this. These folks are going to get back to work in some meaningful way. The clients are going to get the needs filled, and the industry can get back and running and churning as it was prior to this nightmare that we experienced as of early 2020.
Yeah, I think it's great. A great idea that you had. Obviously, Jill and I do some similar stuff in trying to match people who are looking for work with people who have jobs. There's a ton of people online, especially on LinkedIn, who are posting jobs. You're turning this into kind of a business model, which makes it a little bit more I guess, official. So there's a lot of red tape and all that stuff that you're working through. That we got the website down here, which is going to be live eventually. My question is, what are you able to do until, to help people until you are live and ready to go from when you thought of this idea a couple months ago?
Well, obviously, we'll be using social media and the relationships we have and the platforms we have there. So, yeah, keep an eye open on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, any other opportunities. Keep looking at the website, liveeventsstaffingservices.com. We're hoping to have it live by the end of the week. To your point, yeah, and again, we were talking about this before we went live. It's been something of a slog. Obviously, as I said, Jason's been very, very busy with his stuff. I have a full-time gig too at Saffire. So we've been staying busy and just trying to do this as we can and trying to enlist people to help us get this thing launched. It has been something of a slog. We had hoped, I think, to have it launched by now, but it is coming. It's very close. I've dedicated some substantial financial resources on my side to make this happen. Jason has been delivering his staff, and they've been fantastic at trying to do the heavy lift and get some of this stuff off the ground. So we're optimistic. We're right around the corner from it, and once we get the infrastructure ready to go, we'll launch and hopefully hit the ground running and try to get people back to work as quickly as possible.
There's always going to be a need, but with things coming back, events coming back, has there been a little bit of a bump in people getting work from when you first started the thought of the idea till now?
Not really. Frankly, I wish for the industry perspective and from the perspective of those who've been reaching out, I wish I could say, yeah, things are starting to pick back up again. And so, you're seeing more and more people getting back into the workspace. But the reality is, again, while the business is picking up, it's picking up in the anticipation of shows. We have not yet happened to a large degree. So that revenue is still dragging behind. It's on the come, but it's still not here. So I've seen a lot of jobs posted, Matt, and some jobs are getting filled, but there were, literally thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs that went away 15 months ago. So it's going to be, I think, a while before everybody gets back to peak efficiency. And if we can help fill that vacuum in the interim, and until people are in a position to go full time, that's fantastic. And I don't know, and I can't read the future, but I wouldn't be shocked if this model has some legs and is sustainable, because I just read something. LA County is now talking about going back to indoor masking because of the new Delta variant of COVID that's rearing its ugly head. So if we have another hiccup like that and things are closed again or capacities are reduced again, the Dodgers just went back to full capacity. Is there a possibility in the next several months that they're going to have to cut back again? I think there are still so many question marks and so much uncertainty in the industry. If I'm running a building, if I'm running a team, if I have a position within a league, I'm going to be hesitant to maybe go full bore for the next 6 to 12 months. And so this might be a sustainable model for them, just to tide them over until there's absolute certainty that we're back to normal, whatever normal's going to look like.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty. Great. Michael Myers, great supporter of the show, always with some great questions and some insight. I agree completely. And like the greatest example of profits over people, when this thing first started, I said, these companies they're going to regret that they were letting a lot of their staff go, because you're letting like really good people go, and the odds that they're going to come back to you, not great. And then the odds that whoever you get to come back is going to be as good, still not great. It's a crapshoot, right? A 50-50 shot. And even if they are as good, there's time and expense and all that to get them training and ramped up. So if you could keep your staff and have them figure out a way for them to do something, I don't even know what that was. Again, It's easy for me to spend other people's money, but I think that would have been a better move in a lot of cases than to let people go. And now there's so many good people out there looking for work, and they're having trouble finding it. So the higher level people are having to take lower jobs, which is taken away from other people. Now you got a whole run of graduates, and it's just a real mess out there. What's the, obviously what you guys are doing is great. What are some options to help this? I mean, how can we get the people back to work? Obviously, you see people sharing jobs, but it's still a process. What else do you think can be done?
Well, I think I'm not smart enough to offer real solutions to this. More than likely, we can certainly pick our brains and try to come up with ideas. But I think just to focus on something you already said, part of the lingering ill effect of all of this is, again, that drain of talent, that brain drain from the industry. All those, again, thousands and thousands of people who were furloughed and laid off, a lot of those have moved on to other industries, particularly from a programming perspective. A lot of the system people, a lot of the programming folks, that's a skill set that's easily transferable into any number of industries, and we've lost a lot of those folks. So a lot of the people that have left the event industry, chances are they're not coming back. So that's something that's going to be lingering, I think, for quite some time. You're exactly right. There's going to be a ramp up period as we see those positions filled with younger, less experienced, and let's face it, cheaper labor filling that void. So again, if we can in some way, shape, or form save that talent and that experience and bring them back into the workforce, maybe a little more cost effectively for the businesses. Because I get their perspective too, Matt. I mean, they haven't had any money for 15 months. It's a live event business, and when you don't have live events, you don't generate revenue. So if we can bring those people back, get them back into the flow, and bring them back in a more cost-effective way from the perspective of a client, maybe that's part of the solution. And then maybe, hopefully, the clients, as business picks up, and we can talk about 2022, because from what I hear at Pulsar, everyone's anticipating a huge year. As business picks up and the pockets become more full and the coffers are full again, now you realize the value of those experienced people, and maybe they come back on a full-time basis.
That's the hope. One thing I want to hit on, I was in New York City last week, tons and tons of restaurants and stores that are closed. And it thought to me, like, why couldn't they figure out a way to just tread water and make it? And now you're thinking, okay, what are your thoughts on, look, in the event world, if you can't survive with one down year or off year, it's not a great business model in a sense. So what are your thoughts on, I mean, isn't that it's true to some extent?
Yeah, I there's so many variables that I'm sure I'm not aware of, or that we just don't know about. There's at an arena level. I mean, in addition to the labor, there's a physical plant that has to be maintained, right? So there are expenses that go on whether the building is open for events or not. So that's you just can't go out. From a ticketing perspective, I can look at Ticketmaster, and again, when your revenue is derived from convenience fees attached to tickets, and you have no tickets to sell, I don't know where you turn at that point. How do you pivot into a different direction and go another way and generate revenue when your primary business has basically disappeared and dried up?
Yeah, but also there's a difference. There's a distinction between lost revenue and lost money, right? If I lost $7 billion, well, you didn't lose $7 billion. You just didn't have.
You didn't make $7 billion, right?
That you're used to, and so that's also has to do with part of. I don't know if anyone's crying for Ticketmaster and the fees that they weren't getting. I got tickets to Dave Matthews, and it's like $30 in fees. It's we can have a whole nother show about Ticketmaster, and they do some great things.
I put 4 kids through college, so I'm not going to complain about the convenience fees, right?
I get but it is true, because while the companies and the arenas are struggling in some aspects, the CEOs and the owners and all of that are just fine. So the people who lose out are the employees. are the fans and all of that, and the owners will be just fine, and then they get, in some cases the rich got richer.
Yeah.
It's a whole tough situation all around. You want to help out wherever you can, but there is, maybe there is too many events out there. I don't know. There's so much options out there. There probably are events that aren't making it. And in some respects, I think it's okay to have an event that's not there to completely make money all the time. Yeah. Be there for the enjoyment of the fans, because it's a great thing to do. I'm working on an event for Florida Gator basketball fans, and I don't care if I make a penny or not. I think it's going to be a great thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think there's opportunity to make money, but it's not going to be dependent on just, everything comes down to the almighty dollar, which I think it lessens the fan experience and the value for the fan. It's a tough thing.
Yeah. I will say from Safffire's perspective, the way this company was built, and one of the things that was attractive to me when joining it, was the way the ownership group has really grown organically. There was no CV money, right? There was no seed money. That was just the owners building the business and creating the business and expanding the business based on how well they had done the prior year, reinvesting into the company, frankly, taking very little out of it and just doing their thing. And so we were positioned, I think, in a much stronger way to sustain ourselves through the pandemic because there was a war chest and there was, again, not a lot of fat. So you could just really try to sustain as best you could. Plus, they had an ancillary revenue stream through the website creation, something that was unique to the company. They create websites in addition to the ticketing platform. So the recurring revenue that came from the web was a godsend as we tried to sustain, and therefore furloughs were minimal. Salary cuts were not as drastic as some other places. Everybody felt the pain, but when I say that, I mean everybody from the ownership group on down. So if companies did it right, just in terms of building their business, yeah, I mean, there are some out there that you could look at and say, this is the way to do it. This is the way to survive a future emergency like this or a catastrophe like this. There were other companies. I will shout out to AEG and Access. I think the AEG Live, they lost some people in the process, again, because there was nothing to promote, nothing to go out and buy. But to a large degree, AEG stayed intact. I know that Access, I don't know that they furloughed anybody, Matt. I mean, they stayed pretty much whole throughout. They took the time to kind of reassess and strengthen themselves just in terms of the platform and the operation in general. And now they're coming out of it strong. So there were some companies that were in a better place to do it. Phil Anschutz was willing to write the checks to sustain it. He believed in it, and kudos to him. Like a Ticketmaster, again, nobody's going to cry any tears over it, but a publicly traded company, they have a hell of a lot more people to answer to than Phil Anschutz does. So they did what they felt like they had to do. And look, there's a labor hierarchy, absolutely. It's been that way for centuries, and probably always will be that way. And so, the guys at the bottom of the totem pole are the ones that suffer first, and oftentimes more dramatically than others.
Yeah, it's. I want to talk about a cliche that is, I'm lukewarm about, like, only focus on one thing and be great at one thing, right? And so you talk about Saffire having this ancillary service that they provide, which sounds like it kept them in business. So I think it's okay to have, you don't have to, you can't be everything to everyone, but you can be more to people than just one thing as a company, as a person. So I think that was, it sounds like a great thing that Saffire did. Well, let's talk about the ticketing world a little bit. Tell everyone more about Saffire. Most people only know about, Live Nation and Ticketmaster and maybe eTix. I don't know, as some of the bigger ticket companies. Most people actually think Ticketmaster is a ticket company. They're not. They're a software company.
Yeah, and more so a marketing and advertising company at this point, right? With the Live Nation connection. I think that's the bulk of their revenue these days. Saffire is about 10, 12 years old now, I guess. I've been here about 2.5 years. Started out as a web creation company, even going back to the pre-Saffire, back to the real genesis. I mean, they were a retail company building websites for retail. Got into the web creation business found a niche in the fair and festival space and really grew on that for the first 6-7 years of their existence in its current form. Had a request from a client to build out a ticketing platform. They did. Fast forward 2 or 3 years later, and it was 2/3 of the revenue, right? It caught fire, and they had established a niche in that fair space, delivered a nice customizable platform that was functional and easy to use. In the fair space, you get a lot of volunteers, and there's a lot of turnover year to year, right? So you need something that's easy and quick and functional that you can teach to anyone very quickly, and they did that. What I was challenged with doing when I came on board was trying to expand on their footprint in the non-traditional Saffire business, that fair space, looking more at 12-month-a-year business. As we said at the time, looking for clients that actually have roofs over them, as opposed to a fair. And we've made some great progress there. We signed the Metro Park complex just before. It was the last trip I had gone on prior to everything shutting down up in Billings, Montana. 10,000 plus seat arena up there, Class A acts. It was a big score for us. We were really excited about it. And we're actually excited about actually being able to sell tickets for them now once again. So, we got some traction in that area, continuing to expand on that. It's a great little company. Again, I think best I know, the only company that integrates fully integrated website and ticketing platform. So you never have to leave property. It's really the Disney approach to ticket buying. You get them on property and they can buy and do everything they need to do in that one location. So great company, good people. Anybody's interested, you know where to find me.
Yeah. And one thing that I was amazed by and blown away by when I first got into the ticketing event world, and that was back in my worldwide ticket craft days, is how many events there are. I mean, thousands and thousands of, you've never even heard of them, and they're getting 20,000 people to come to this thing, it's insane, the amount of events. So to that end, there is a lot of opportunity for ticketing companies, and there are a ton of ticketing companies that you've never heard of and I've never heard of, and they're just out there. They're not going after the big whales, that are owned by, the few that are, the big boys.
Yeah. There's a lot of that low-hanging fruit out there, for lack of a better way to put it. What blew me away when I first got involved in this business was, again, we're big in the fairs, the size and scope of those operations. The Tulsa State Fair, we that was another deal we signed just prior to the pandemic, and of course the fair ended up getting canceled in 2020. But they get 1.1 million attendees. I mean, over a 2-week period. I mean, that's phenomenal when you think about it. And I think everybody knows that some of these state fairs are massive, but Tulsa's only one of 2 state fairs in that state. There's the Oklahoma State Fair as well, outside of Oklahoma City. And then this one, of course, in Tulsa, but 1.1 million people. That's massive. And the ability to help them build up their database and drive that traffic online, as opposed to showing up at the gate and buying the roll tickets and really not having much data to market from and really kind of work toward building a larger audience. It's invaluable if you can capture that and drive people to online sales and just continue to help them grow their business. I mean, who knows where this thing's going to go, but I've been blown away by the size and scope of these operations. Yeah.
Are you guys into the timed entry world?
Yeah. We it's not our primary business, obviously. But yeah, we certainly have options within that realm. I think we'd probably, full disclosure, we'd probably like to get better at because it's going to be, I think, more and more of a player, particularly if we have another shutdown. You're going to see more and more of it, controlled crowd flow. We have alternatives to that. We can track access, egress, and do it kind of that way. But timed entry, I think, is something that we would probably like to get better at, frankly. So anybody looking to be a really good beta, cool.
I'm sure there's plenty of them out there. One thing in the ticketing world, I'd like your opinion on what makes a ticketing system better than another? Like why use Saffire, or just talking, let's talk in general. What makes one better than the other, aside from the fact that there are some systems that are really geared towards, baseball or a fair or,
Sure.
A concert? And it brings me to the other point of, and we don't have to bet, I'm not here to bash anyone, but there's no reason why venues and organizations and even artists can't get away from the bigger boys if they wanted to take a stand. We just, Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam always comes to mind, like they sued Ticketmaster and now they're run by Ticketmaster. It's an interesting thing. So, but why? I mean, obviously there's a lot of money involved, right?
Sure.
That's one of it, where people were paying money because they knew they were going to get it back in the fees. But what makes a system better than another? Like why? What should they look for in a system?
You know what? It really is. There's not one blanket answer. I'm not trying to avoid it, but there's really not one blanket answer. It is going to be based on need. It's going to be based on what's important to you. We have gotten a lot of traction again in our space, in our vertical, because there is something of there's a familial, I think, consistent from fair to fair. It's a rather small, closed fraternity, and there has to be a trust factor. There's a relationship, very, very strong relationship factor at our level, where people have maintained relationships for years. They trust. They believe in. They are really about having a true partnership, right? So if the platform does enough for them to get what they need, and they're good with the relationship, then that's going to seal the deal for us. That said, I think our platform has grown in terms of capabilities, and it can serve any number of masters now. But that's one big part of how we've been successful. It is relationships and that the building of same. I think what has really worked and what has continued to sustain Ticketmaster, you're right. It was a huge money business. I mean, I know my experience there. I was acting as the bank for a lot of these buildings. I could renew a deal for anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 to 10 years in some cases, and I could write them a substantial check. I mean, easily a 7 and sometimes 8-figure check to help cover their operating expenses for the next X number of months or years or whatever the case was. So when you can find someone large enough and with pockets deep enough to subsidize your business operations for a sustainable time, that's a big plus in your column. I think also, obviously, the Live Nation merger with Ticketmaster, it brings the whole content play into the mix. And at that level, Matt, content rules everything. I mean, it's all about getting the talent in your building. And even if there's a perception that you're not going to have access to that top tier talent, if you don't renew a deal, not accusing anybody of extorting or leveraging or whatever, but if there's even a sniff that you might not be able to get Fleetwood Mac or the Eagles or whomever into your building because you don't have a Ticketmaster platform in your building, why would you do that deal? Plus, I'm going to get a big check to renew. So I've used this line many, many times, especially as I left Ticketmaster and went to these other companies. No building manager ever gets fired for renewing with Ticketmaster. There's a chance you might get fired if you don't, and the thing goes south. So it's a safe bet for a lot of people, and it's an easy bet for a lot of people. Back to your original question. I mean, again, you alluded to it. I mean, if you're a baseball team and Tickets.com is built for baseball, then yeah, that's a natural selection for you too. In addition to Ticketmaster, Access being owned by AEG has tremendous relationships. It goes back to the relationship issue. They do a fine job. They have relationships that are strong. They're very big in Vegas, obviously. Great people working there. And so they have their own relationships, and people are comfortable using them. They may not want to use Ticketmaster. There might be a Live Nation issue. They know they can get talent through AEG and the AEG Live arm. So, that's a factor. ETIX, independently owned, they were very early. I think they still tout the fact that they were the first online ticketing option. And Travis Janovich has built a great company and great people, and Travis is a really good guy. So those relationships come into play. At the end of the day, everybody's going to be able to deliver a platform that has its own bells and whistles. All right. And it's just a question of what bells and whistles are important to you. If somebody does something really, really well, but this other company is going to do something equally as important, but just as well. And I think what also differentiates people, what differentiates companies, everyone's going to have issues as well. Things are going to break. You're relying on software and hardware and phone lines and the cloud and whatever. Stuff is going to happen. Things are going to go down. How do you respond to those problems?
Yeah.
What's the response like?
Because
you be there to back me, right? And that's what separates the men from the boys to a large degree. How do you respond to the inevitable problems and challenges they're going to confront?
I think customer service, in my eyes, is probably the most important thing. To me, is to do right by people and make sure you're keeping them happy to the extent that you can. There's obviously things, and customer service is like, I get people being very nice to me, but not doing their jobs and not really comprehending, or I don't want you to, it's like the doctor. I don't need you to have a nice bedside manner. I need you to do your job.
Yeah.
I'm not as concerned with how nice and that they're teaching these people to talk so sweet. Oh, I'm sorry, but I want you to be able to get things done. One of the things I like about all these other companies, and it goes with everything, is the competition. It makes you do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter what your relationship is. Most people should have to be pushed to do better. Otherwise, I will. I mean, I can have a great relationship with you, but if someone else comes along and they're going to offer me the same things and it's a better price and they've done all this, and you keep saying, well, we've been with that. You've been with us for a long time. You're just going to continue to stay with us. So I think that's one of the good things of that the competition is doing. And there's enough space for a lot of people, a lot of companies in this. All different aspects of it.
From my perspective too, and this is not just ticketing. This is every business I deal with. I think from my perspective, the biggest positive aspect of customer service is empowerment. Give the person I'm talking to the power to fix my problem. I don't want to have to go through 2 or 3 or 4 layers and escalating this nonstop to solve a problem that should have been relatively easy to solve in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. So I think if you empower your people, and I think Saffire is fantastic at that. Frankly, every place I've been, they've been pretty good about letting the people involved in the situation fix the situation if it needs fixed. So if you empower those people, and then of course the back end of that is you have to hire the right people to do it, right? They've got to be smart and know what's going on and be able to make good judgment and good assessments. But I at the end of the day, if you empower people to fix the problems, that's going to solve 90% of your customer service issues.
Yeah, I was just having this conversation the other day. I said, I can't even tell you how many times I'm on the phone talking to someone saying, I know it's not your fault. I know you can't do anything about this, but I'm going to ream you for the next 5 minutes and tell you why this is BS.
Yeah, and what I went through a situation not long ago. I can't even remember who the company was. Whoever it was. Oh, it was Wells Fargo. I had an issue with a bank card, right? And I had to go through multiple layers. I think I ended up talking to probably 10 different people. And I got to the point where I just started the conversation off with, look, here's my issue. Tell me right now, is that something you can fix for me, or do I need to go to someone else?
Yeah.
And if they were honest with it, they said, well, I don't have the ability to do that. Fine. Send me to the right person then.
Some of them don't even know who the right person is. That's the other problem.
Well, yeah. And then I got to several layers where they said, look, that's just impossible. We can't possibly do it. Well, guess what?
You can't.
I've been in that business. I get this customer service. I know there's always somebody who can ultimately make the call to make it happen. I need that person. Who should I talk to? And ultimately, I got the problem fixed, right? But I had to go through, again, 10 layers.
The biggest thing for me is people using the word can't when they really mean won't or don't want to. And it's done way too much. I had a whole incident with ticketing this last week about saying we can't do this. And I'm like, you can. And I don't know why you don't. Right. It's, again, that person not having the authority to do it. It's the people love to use the word can as though someone's going to on the other end be like, oh, you know what? They couldn't do it. No, I know. I've been in this business. I've done it. I know you can. You just don't want to. And that's fine. I think there's a lot. One thing that people don't understand about business is that you don't have to start a business because other people can't do it. It could be doing it because other people don't want to do it because they're too lazy, because maybe you could do it better. And then also the competition. I don't worry about the competition. I worry about them doing it right. So we have people doing commemorative tickets. I just think they're doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't mind that they're doing it. I want to help them and talk to them and make sure that they're doing it right. So as an industry, we don't all get the stigma of, oh, that's not going to work. That's not great. And that goes with any industry and any business. So those are just some of the things that I, encountered.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves. I mean, it is evolutionary. When I started in this business, we didn't refund convenience fees, service charges, whatever you want to call them, right? I mean, in fact, talk about evolutionary. They're now convenience fees as opposed to service charges. So, I mean, we didn't refund them back in the day. So that has evolved. I think coming out of this nightmare as well, man, I think you're probably going to see some modifications to a lot of the policies. And maybe more of a willingness to look at it from a consumer-centric perspective. I think, to Live Nation's credit, they did a lot of that with Ticketmaster. It became more about the consumer than the building. And I think that helped some of the customer service issues. Obviously, not all of them. There's still any number of arguments to be made, about the fees being too high or refundability or whatever the case is. But I think there was more of a focus or a shift in focus to the artist and the consumer as opposed to the venues. And again, Saffire has been great about that too. We're just, look, if your experience wasn't good, we're not going to charge you for it. At the end of the day, we want you to come back. So that's what it's about. So I think you could really see, again, a continued evolution of focus to the consumer and trying to rebuild audience going forward. I think
this is probably not going to be a well-supported comment among. I like to preface it by that. I don't think that enough entities, teams, organizations, leagues, companies care about fans, customers, consumers, employees. I just don't think they do. I think there's more that don't really care about it, and I think they're going to have to change that. But it's got to change from the top. Like, everyone's just trying to cover. It's like cover your ass, and like even just American Airlines the other day. We got back from our flight, and we get there, and our bags are soaked. Like I tweet at them, and I'm like, why are our bags soaked? Well, once there's lightning, we got to get our employees in. Okay, what does that have to do with the bags? So it's like they don't care, but what they do care about is other people. It's the perception of it. They want other people to perceive, right? So if you tweet, it's amazing how quickly that'll go to a direct message. They don't want that in a conversation in the open. It goes right to a direct message. I think everything I do is, to enhance the fan experience. And I think a lot of organizations, teams, leagues, events, whatever you want to call them, are going to have to do that. Especially think about from now to the end of the year, how many events there are.
Yeah.
They're all piled in together, and you got to try and get people to go to yours. Like I had 3 events in one weekend, and I had to get refunded for 2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I think we can look at Major League Baseball maybe as an example. Obviously the teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox, whatever, they've got that rabid fan base, and people are coming out, the Dodgers too. People are going to come out. They're going to support them. They have that built into the organization. I think you see places like Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Kansas City. They have shifted, and this has been a long time, but they've shifted over the past, I'm guessing 10 years or so, Matt, where it's not about the team and the performance. You're not selling the Pirates or the Royals or the Reds. You're selling the experience of bringing your family out to a game. So I think that actually is what you're talking about, right? It's about, hey, come out. It's relatively affordable form of family entertainment. Get a hot dog, have a Coke, enjoy this. They've got games in the park. They've got all kind of different foods now. They've just broadened the experiential piece of it, where the product on the field is secondary or maybe even tertiary to a lot of the other stuff that's going on within the park.
I'll argue that Yeah, I'll argue that it's affordable as much, but it's a much better value. And baseball has that. I was at the game last week, Yankees Royals, 1 p.m., maybe 50% full.
Yeah.
And the Yankees were playing well. It's just part of it's a day game, but it's the Yankees. I don't know. I thought it would have been more. It's not that cheap to bring, but there is a lot of value. Baseball is one of those sports where it is the experience. Like I could just walk around and I don't need to sit at my seat. You don't do that in football. You sit at your seat and you watch the game. At basketball, you watch the baseball. There's so many other reasons to go, and I think it's a great thing to experience that. So I do agree with that. And they're learning that it is a business. It is entertainment, and it also has to balance between the winning. And that's why you'll see teams that are doing very well financially and not so great on the field, and they're maybe not as concerned about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think another aspect that you're going to see, at least from what I can tell, you're going to see more emphasis on streaming services. I sit on the board for a company called InLive, live streaming service. I think when the pandemic started, you saw people trying to use streaming as an alternative to going to a show, and you just can't replicate the experience of going to an arena with 20,000 of your closest friends and seeing your favorite bands. But I think what streaming can become is a supplement to those 20,000, right? As people try to claw back on the past year and the lost opportunity of revenue, I won't say lost money, right? But the lost opportunity to make more money, as people try to claw back with that, if they can take their 20,000 capacity and take that to pick a number, through live stream, if they can double capacity or triple capacity through live stream and generate even additional revenue from that. And the streaming is becoming so technically advanced now. Again, within live, what we're looking at, I look at it as an opportunity. It's almost like a merger of live stream with video games, where you can buy tokens, which will put your hologram on stage with Springsteen or whatever the case is. There's some really cool shit.
We're working on some of that stuff here.
It's unbelievable, right? I mean, it's crazy. I can't even wrap my brain around what it's going to be able to do. And so I think that type of innovation is going to be part of the concert experience going forward. And it's going to help everybody make a larger pool of revenue.
Yeah, the key to that, though, and what I've said from the beginning with live streaming is the key to the hybrid is that it's live. Yeah. All these live streams, these shows, they weren't live. They're recording. I can get that anywhere.
Yeah, I can go on YouTube, and I can go on YouTube and watch an Eagles concert anytime I want.
Anytime I want. Yeah. And now they were charging for shows in the past, and I guess there's enough fans to watch it. That's why they do it. But I would rather, I don't know. I would rather get to the masses and make less per than just get more for the few. If you're making the same amount of money, why not get to more people? Because you never know what that's going to lead to.
Yeah, here's the challenge, though. For quite some time now, the most popular bands are senior citizens.
Yeah.
So they got to make their money now.
Yeah.
Because Keith Richards is going to drop dead someday. Some argue he did 15 years ago. But at some point, the Stones are not going to be able to go out on the road. The Eagles are not going to be able to go out on the road. Fleetwood Mac's not going to be able to go out on the road.
Yeah, but what I meant is if I'm going to sell 5,000 tickets at $50, I'd rather lower that price to 40 or 30 and get more people, the volume where you're earning the same. But again, these are all for other conversations. Let's talk about live events, since that's what we're talking about. You were at Polestar. Was that your first live event? Were you at concerts, games, or anything prior?
I've gone. I drove down. My son lives in San Diego, so I drove down several weeks ago. We took in a Padres game.
Great.
So yeah, that was the first live event I had gone to, and at that point, I think they were at 50% capacity, maybe. But we're in California, right? So it's lockdown central.
Yeah.
So we were. There was limited capacity. It was every other row, basically.
It's a great park. Love it. I can sit outside and watch the game.
It's fantastic. Yeah, it's one of my favorite parks. So anyway, that was the first live event I'd gone to. So yeah, Polestar, obviously the first conference I went to post pandemic. So
three things from Polestar that you thought was great content, or that surprised you? Just 3 either moments or quotes or ideas.
Yeah. First off, we talked about this before we went live, but reduced attendance. I was pleasantly surprised that there were as many people as there were. Obviously, it wasn't as full as in past years, but optimism that those types of things are coming back.
Yeah.
My second point would be again, optimism in general about the industry, and I think that would probably be my third takeaway too, quite frankly, because the optimism was huge. These past 10 years were the best 10 years in the industry. There was a year-over-year improvement every freaking year, and the place was just the business was just booming. 2020 would have been the biggest concert year in the history of the industry, and so of course we're limping our way back into it in 2021.
Don, real quick, does any of that have to do with like the movie model where movies are 10 times more expensive than they were, so it's not necessarily more people are going, but there's more? Is that a numbers thing? Is that a dollars thing?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think there's obviously it's apples to apples, based on past years if you factor in inflation and whatever. So there's more money because tickets are more expensive, but I do think there's just more content too, and there's more demand. Hell, we've got 2 new arenas opening in the next 6 months between the building on Long Island and Seattle, and then you've got the new building in Austin that's opening. You've got a new building opening in Savannah. I think they're all Oakview Group buildings. So you're seeing tremendous growth still in the business. You're seeing new arenas being constructed. You're seeing new teams coming into the NHL. It's going to be a tremendous growth time in 2022. On top of the fact that, again, everybody's going to be looking to get back onto the road, and then there's just tremendous pent up demand, Matt. I think people are dying to get back out and start attending live events again. And so you're going to take what would have been a fantastic 2020, what would have been probably an even better 2021, and it's 2022 is going to be those 2 combined on steroids. I think there's just what I sit on some industry calls from time to time through a company out of New York called BWG. And what you're hearing there is that the building manager is talking about how Irving would make the call. He would need a Saturday in June, or this band would only play a weekend, or this band would only play these dates or that days of the week. It's the equivalent. The metaphor I've been using is like flights stacked up coming into LAX. You've got all of these bands and all these tour dates. They're just hovering, looking for some place to land, and they're going to take whatever dates they can get at whatever arena in whatever city they can. It's going to be that jammed. The calendar is going to be that busy that you will take whatever you can get just to get a date. And so I think that's going to be a big challenge for the bands and the promoters and the buildings, just trying to get everybody in and accommodate as many shows as going to be out there.
Yeah, the festival world is crazy because you're a smaller festival. You're waiting on your headliner who's they're not going to book you before they realize when can I play here and when can I play there.
Absolutely. And there's going to be a lot of jockeying, and there's going to be a lot of leveraging, and there's probably going to be a lot of last minute shifting. If I'm coming into New York and I want to play the new building and I can't get a new date, well, fine, I'll play Brooklyn, but all of a sudden a date opens up. Brooklyn just got screwed, or New Jersey just got screwed, and they're going to go into the new venue. So I think there's going to be a lot of that too. There's going to be a lot of powering through some of these calendars.
I don't know what Tony was referring to, but let us know. May have opportunity now. Thanks for tuning in. What are you looking forward to most? What event that you're going to go to?
Oh boy, I just want to get back to live music. I alluded to this earlier. I'm of that generation where the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac and those guys, that was my music. And I know that I don't have too many opportunities to see them over the next several years. I don't know. I mean, when Fry died, I thought that might be it for the Eagles. But, thank God they came back in another format. I still haven't seen the new version, right? So I'd love to get back out and see them.
Have you seen Felder? He's great on his own.
I'm sorry?
Don Felder, have you seen him on his own?
I have not.
He's great.
I have not. I'll have to check that out. So, yeah, just getting back out into that environment. I mean, it's so electric. It's why we're in this business.
Yeah.
It's such an exciting industry, and there's so much energy. And just again, being at Polestar last week and being around what I consider some of the icons in the industry. I mean, Leiweke was there, obviously. Irving was there. The Peter Lucos and the Hank Bates of the world have been doing this forever. They're running, buildings and building new buildings, and there's such legacy and history and experience there. And just being around those guys and hearing their vision of the future and the bounce back of the industry, it's a business we love. It's in our blood. It's been our career, and to see it wounded as it has been for the last year and a half has been painful, not just from a personal perspective, but seeing the industry in general suffering and knowing that it's going to come back stronger than ever. It's invigorating, and it just restores my faith in the business and the people running it.
Yeah, I never worried from the bigger picture of it that it wasn't going to be able to come back. And now it's just a matter of, how long it takes and what it's going to look like. But give me live music anyway. I was at a bar in Jersey Shore listening to a cover band, which is one of my favorite things to do. And I was just, it's heaven to me. I'll listen to music anywhere. Give me a Mount Rushmore for you for music acts. It could be the best are or who your favorites are, either one.
Well, I've seen the Eagles more than anybody. In fact, this up here is from opening night at American Airlines Center in Dallas. They were the opening band for that building. I was there that night. So yeah, I've seen the Eagles more than anyone, and they're just fantastic. If you get a chance, if you haven't, I can't believe there's anybody out there who hasn't seen them live. It's like listening to an album. They stick to it. They've got the formula down. It's fantastic. It's a great night. You sing along to every song. So they would be up there. I've kind of the best entertainer I think I've ever seen, and I was not a fan going into the show, Billy Joel.
Billy Joel.
I went to see Elton and Billy because I hadn't seen Elton.
Yeah.
And Billy Joel came out first and just stole the night for me. He was absolutely fantastic.
He's on my Mount Rushmore.
Oh my gosh! What an entertainer! He was just a blast, and I just became a fan from that point. Side story: my oldest daughter bought for her husband for Father's Day, bought 2 tickets to see Billy Joel at Notre Dame Stadium next June in 2022. Two things off his bucket list: Billy Joel and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So they would be there. I grew up with 2 older brothers who were big Motown fans. And I've seen, other than the Eagles, I've probably seen the Temptations more than anybody else. I love the Temptations. I love the Motown sound. Just a
Broadway show for the
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Ain't Too Proud to Beg. Does that sound right? Was that the name of it?
My mom would know.
Yeah, well, there you go. And then I'm totally off the reservation on this because I love the music of the period. Sinatra.
Yeah.
I love Sinatra. I mean, who doesn't love Sinatra?
Yeah, that's a great.
I married into an Italian family. I have to love Sinatra, or they'll cap me. What can I tell you?
That's a pretty good Mount Rushmore. I don't think, no matter which anyone comes up with, it's going to be just, these are all, it's so hard to narrow down. It's always going to be personal preference. We're a memorabilia company, collectible, whatever you want to call it. What's your favorite piece of memorabilia that if you had to get rid of everything else and you can only take one thing out, what would it be?
I have a photo of myself when I was 13 at spring training, 1972, shaking hands with Roberto Clemente.
Oh, wow.
That's my prized possession.
Did he get to sign it, or it wasn't a Polaroid, was it?
It was a Polaroid, but I had it redone, kind of, if you will, and so it's a little more sustainable. But I've still got it. In fact, I've got Clemente on my wall over here, off camera. But
That's a great.
He was my idol growing up. So, and I have a replica Clemente jersey that my son stole from me. So I got to get that back one of these days.
Get it back from him. You'll have to remember to do that. Do you have a favorite venue you've been to and a bucket list venue that you haven't been to?
I have been. I had made one trip when I was with Ticketmaster. I made a trip into New York with the Chargers to catch a game at the old Meadowlands. But the night before the game, they treated us, and we went to the Garden to see Springsteen.
Oh wow!
I mean, list ends right there. Springsteen at the Garden. That was my one trip to Madison Square Garden, and that's I probably won't go back because what am I going to do at this point, right? Yeah. I saw Springsteen there. What am I going to do?
I grew up in New Jersey, so we went to a lot of events at Madison Square Garden. It's not a bad seat in the house. It's just a magical venue. What about a venue that you'd like to go to?
I think I probably would like to do Wembley one of these days, just because it's iconic. I mean, I've been to see him here. I've been to the Forum. I've been to a lot of the iconic venues. I went to the old Chicago Stadium before it was torn down, in the old Meadowlands. So, but Wembley, I see these videos of all these great shows there. In Excess, ELO, U2, you name it, and it's just there's such a vibe there. So I think I'd like to experience Wembley before it goes away.
Yeah. When you were growing up, was there something you wanted to be outside of the entertainment and event world that if you had to switch and do something else, I
have a degree in criminology. I was going to pursue law enforcement. That's what I went to college for. I grew up in a family of law enforcement officers, and that was going to follow in the family business. But it just came to realization my first senior year that getting shot at for relatively low money was probably not a good career choice. So I diverted I ended up getting a degree in journalism, which led me to. My first gig in the business was with the Cincinnati Reds, working in the ticket office there, and that's where I got to know Terry Barnes, who at the time was running the Midwest for Ticketmaster. Eventually, Terry became chairman, and Terry stole me away from the Reds. And that's how I started my career with Ticketmaster a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that thinking for the law enforcement career.
Yeah.
We appreciate the ones that are. It's so many topics for a whole nother show, but it's incredible. I like a CSI. I was a big CSI guy. I would have liked to get involved with that. I think is something I maybe would have done. I don't know. We'll let you out of here on the same question we let everyone out on. You can pick one person to spend a day with. They have to be living, and you can't be related to them. Who are you picking, and what are you guys going to do? We're putting a list together. We've already made some outreach to some of the people. We're going to make it happen for as many of our guests as we can. It could be anyone. It doesn't have to be sports or entertainment. It could be a world leader. It could be anyone. They just have to be living, and you can't be related to them. Yeah,
I can't be related. Wow, that's a really tough one. This will probably sound kind of really morbid, but I probably shouldn't go there. No, I'm going to go there. I think I'd really like to sit down with Vladimir Putin.
Okay.
And just basically say, what are you thinking? Yeah. And how the hell do you get away with it?
Yeah.
In this day and age, there's so much shit going on. I'd like to get behind that criminal mind. It's just what makes you tick? What makes you so effing crazy?
I'm guessing that's going to be a hard one, but we're going to put him on the list. There's a lot of these leaders in the world that are like that. They're just not as vocal and out in front like he is. And,
see, that's the thing. He's so brash and so bold about it. It's like, I killed him. What are you gonna do about it?
I don't know how people.
This is the criminology. This is the criminology background, man. It's coming out. It's like I gotta get behind and see what makes that brain tick.
My wife watches legal and law and murder and mystery. Would love to get and have a conversation with the serial killers and all these people to understand like what's going on there. So it's not an unusual thing. We'll put them on the list. And we'll make I got to tune up on my Russian.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm raising the bar. I'm raising the bar for you. It's up here.
I don't want to ask him something and say it the wrong way, and then bad things.
Yeah, just don't drink out of that water bottle they provided for you.
We'll keep an eye out for when Les is active on the website. Live Entertainment Staffing Services. It's a great thing helping people in the entertainment world. I assume it'll be greater for other things too. Just helping people get back to work. It's definitely needed, and there's so many people doing it right now, but there can never be enough. Check out Saffire Tickets if you need or have any questions on the ticketing in the ticketing world. Really appreciate your time here, and great to chat always. I know I asked some uncomfortable questions. I know, based on people's backgrounds, and I get it, but I always like to get a little bit out of the box with my questions and get a little controversial and get some good conversation going. So I appreciate your willingness to do that. And we'll see you soon. I'll keep everyone apprised of what's going on.
Thanks very much. It was a pleasure, Matt. Thanks so much.
All right, Don. Tune in tomorrow for another episode of the Wolff Den.